Across the vast plains of Africa, a silent crisis unfolds. Tanzania and South Sudan, once vibrant with life, are drying up at an alarming rate. Climate change casts a long shadow, but it's not the only culprit. Geography and human actions are amplifying the effects, pushing these nations towards a parched and uncertain future. The consequences are dire, threatening both people and the natural world. But hope remains. By understanding the complexities of this crisis, we can find ways to combat desertification and secure a brighter future for these vulnerable lands. The urgency of the situation cannot be overstated. Water, the lifeblood of any nation, is becoming increasingly scarce. Rivers that once flowed freely are now reduced to trickles. Lakes are shrinking, their shorelines receding like memories of a wetter past. The land, once fertile and teeming with life, is hardening into an unforgiving expanse of dust. This is the reality facing millions of people in Tanzania and South Sudan. To understand why Tanzania and South Sudan are drying up faster than other regions, we must first look at their geography. Both countries lie in predominantly arid and semi-arid regions, characterized by low and erratic rainfall. This natural predisposition to dryness makes them particularly vulnerable to the effects of climate change. Tanzania's vast savannas and grasslands, home to iconic wildlife, depend on delicate seasonal rains. Disruptions to these patterns, driven by climate change, can have devastating consequences. Similarly, South Sudan, a relatively young nation still grappling with the legacy of conflict, relies heavily on the White Nile for its water security. As temperatures rise and rainfall patterns shift, the Nile's flow is becoming increasingly unpredictable, jeopardizing the livelihoods of millions. While climate change plays a significant role, it's crucial to acknowledge the human activities exacerbating the drying crisis. Deforestation, driven by the demand for charcoal and agricultural land, strips the land of its natural ability to retain moisture. Overgrazing, a consequence of unsustainable livestock practices, further degrades the soil, making it less able to absorb rainfall. Unsustainable agricultural practices, often employed out of necessity to feed growing populations, deplete the soil of vital nutrients and moisture. These practices, coupled with poor irrigation techniques, contribute to land degradation and desertification, accelerating the cycle of drying. Section 4. Life on the edge, communities and ecosystems at risk. The consequences of this drying crisis are far-reaching, impacting both human communities and the natural environment. For pastoralist communities who rely on healthy grazing lands for their livelihoods, the shrinking water resources and deteriorating pastures spell disaster. Farmers face crop failures and dwindling yields as once fertile lands turn to dust. Competition for scarce resources often leads to conflict, further exacerbating the humanitarian crisis. The drying also threatens the region's rich biodiversity. Wildlife populations are dwindling as their habitats shrink and water sources disappear. The delicate balance of these ecosystems is disrupted, with potentially irreversible consequences. Section 5. A path to resilience, combating desertification. Despite the dire situation, there is still hope. Addressing this crisis requires a multifaceted approach, combining local knowledge with scientific innovation and global cooperation. Sustainable land management practices such as afforestation and reforestation are crucial to restore degraded lands and improve water retention. Promoting drought-resistant crops and efficient irrigation techniques can help farmers adapt to the changing climate and ensure food security. Investing in early warning systems for droughts and floods can empower communities to prepare for and mitigate the impacts of extreme weather events. Addressing the root causes of deforestation and unsustainable land use practices is paramount. This requires empowering communities with alternative livelihoods, promoting sustainable resource management, and strengthening governance structures.